David Mack.
Thank you, Professor Ahmed. I'm David Mack of the Middle East Institute. Big problem dealing with the U.S. population at large. I remember not long after September 2001, a Sikh gasoline attendant was killed by somebody in Arizona who thought he was retaliating against a Muslim. Kind of a unique American combination of ignorance and bigotry, I suppose. But we can do something about elements of the U.S. government which are in a position to make a difference. I know from talking in those early years after September 2001 to some senior people in the Federal Bureau of Investigation that the FBI really wanted to establish some kind of cooperative relationships with Muslim American communities. From the survey you've had, what is the feeling of those communities? Is the FBI viewed as a friend or an enemy? Is it doing better than it was doing 8 years ago? That kind of conclusion.
Thank you, David. In fact, I have a friend of mine, Dennis Gerton, sitting here. I don't know whether I should blow his cover, but he was, incidentally, he's not here to spy on you and me. He's here genuine to be part of this discussion. He's been to my class several times. He's a senior FBI agent, a senior officer, and he, in fact, was in charge and did a great job for outreach. So for several years, he's been to all the mosques. He's creating space for this dialogue and has created bridges. So, Dennis, maybe you should feel this one.
Completely off the record.
Give him the microphone, please.
I mean, I can address it from what I did. I don't speak for the Bureau. I have to make that very clear if there's any reporters here. This is just me.
Dennis, especially after what happened to General McChrystal.
Yes, I have to keep that in mind. The outreach to the community is very challenging. And I was, one of my questions for Dr. Ahmed and why I sought his counsel is, one is the demographics, trying to understand the population itself. How many are first generation, second generation? Because the image of the FBI, if you're from Egypt, if you're from Pakistan, if you're from other parts of the world, anything that has to do with the government or law enforcement automatically conjures up images that here in the United States, yes, we have mistrust of government, but you don't have it to that level or to that intensity. So that's an obstacle that has to be overcome. The second is that whether we want to believe it or not, the attacks on 9/11, and as Dr. Ahmed mentioned, throwing the Muslim population in the United States immediately to the forefront, again, there was very few people in the FBI at the time that really understood what we were dealing with. So the FBI is, it's an image of society. So there's a lot of learning that had to be done within the agency on how to deal with this phenomenon. I can tell you that there's still mistrust on both sides. Just much like anybody, when the FBI knocks on your door, it's, why are you here? What do you want? There's a history in America of being suspicious of government. That's how we came about as a country. We didn't want governments running our lives. So there's a lot of common themes here, but I will say that it's a challenging dynamic. We need the community. We're here to protect the community, and the community needs to embrace us. Now, you read the paper. We only get bad press. That's part of the job. There's a lot of good things being done. There's a lot of good people out there that are helping us. We're doing a lot of good things, I believe, out in the community. So it's a challenge that's being addressed, and it's something that needs to continue to go forward. But it is definitely a challenge.
In fact, as I mentioned, my team who traveled with me is here. And as Americans, they are very much involved in trying to answer the questions that we've been discussing. And I would, with Wendy's permission, ask Frankie to make a comment, and then Eli after that, and Jonathan. Frankie, could you please? So on the FBI and this relationship, and how do you think it's faring, and what needs to be done?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was an incredible experience traveling to all of these mosques and seeing the country through a different lens. What emerged pretty quickly was this idea that, there aren't so many people that are doing this. And I think hopefully by reading the book, people will get kind of an idea about how it can be done. I was on the plane going to Denver for an event, and a woman, I was talking to her, and she said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, we're doing this project, and we've gone to all these mosques." And she said, "Well, wait a minute, I don't think Muslims would ever allow anyone in a mosque, a non-believer." And I said, "Well, I've been to 100 of them." And so she was shocked. But I think there's also that level in the government. There are great people.
He did mention she asked for a seat to be immediately shifted from.
That's right. But there are a lot of great people in the government, like Dennis, who really are trying to reach out and understand the community. But when we got back from the field work and we were talking in Washington with people and government officials, and Ambassador Ahmed is called on quite frequently to talk with the intelligence services and DHS and the FBI just to have a dialogue and see how we can do things better. There didn't seem to be an agency out there whose job it was to do the kinds of things we were doing, just to get a picture of the community, just to know who the leaders are, just to know where the mosques are. I mean, a lot of these places, the Muslim community themselves didn't know where some of these mosques were that we went to. And so we went there, and we would sit, and we would talk to people, and we would listen, and we'd say, who are the leaders? And we'd go, we found incredible stuff. In St. Louis, I had no idea there are 60,000, 70,000 Bosnians there. So going in that community was incredible. There are 40,000 Nigerian Muslims in Houston, these kinds of things. So we need to figure out, and I think the government needs to figure out, whose job is it to do this? And then once you have this body of knowledge, you can really do something with it and try and understand some of the problems.
And let me just point out that all three are very mainstream Americans. Frankie's dad is a senior officer in the Homeland Security, formerly in the State Department, posted overseas. Haley's from Texas, and I think that should be enough introduction. Jonathan from Alabama, and that's enough for him. Please.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about the negatives and the gloom and doom about the Muslim community in America, but I want to bring out some of the positive points. As Dr. Ahmed said, so many Muslims said that America is by far the best place to live as a Muslim in the world. We heard that all across the country, so that's one really positive thing. There are challenges, but overall, the freedom of religion, the opportunities they have, it's number one. Number two, the Muslim women in America are really an inspiring community, and there's a lot that they can do. They're really emerging as leaders, and people should really focus on, I think, the Muslim women in the United States. And thirdly, the African American community. They're totally American, they're totally Muslim, and they can really serve as a bridge, which I think they're largely ignored in the discussions of the Muslim community in America. So we met some incredible people that were from all three of these communities, and I think we need to bring them out rather than focusing on Muslim immigrant men in the United States, which there are some great Muslim immigrant men as well, but I think we need to diversify our view of the Muslim community in America.
Thank you, Ali. In fact, she's absolutely right to point this out. There are 3 full chapters on these topics. Haley is now, of course, research director of a new center on campus at Georgetown, and just back from Alexandria, where she was on several panels talking about these issues. So very much being a bridge between the two civilizations. Jonathan?